Okay, here we go. Focus. Speed. I am speed. One winner. 42 losers. I eat losers for breakfast. Maybe I should have had breakfast. A little brekkie could be good for me. No, stay focused. Speed. Faster than fast, quicker than quick. I am lightning.
All right. Gentlemen. Drivers. Start. Your engines.
As the field moves down the back straightaway into turn 3. 250 laps to go in the NASCAR Busch Series. We're glad to have you with us tonight on TNN Motorsports.
Get ready.
Elliott Sadler will bring him to the green. The safety car is in. And we're ready to go racing on a Saturday night.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Out and About Science with Mr. G. Today, this video is a little bit different than what I typically do, but I went to Myrtle Beach this past summer with my family and decided to take in a race at Myrtle Beach Speedway. And one of the things I always say in all of my videos is science is everywhere. What will you find? So we're going to see what kind of science we can find at a racetrack and cars going around the racetrack. So if you guys are ready, let's science on and let's look at some of the science behind a race car. So the first thing to talk about, of course, is the car moving forward. The term we would use for that is thrust, the engine providing the horsepower and the ability for the car to move forward and thrust. The other thing to look at then is the air or the wind resistance, the drag on the car. As we've seen throughout time, as cars have evolved in the sport, they have become more rounded, aerodynamic to allow the air to go over the top of the car as easy as possible. But by the air going over the top of the car creates a low pressure on top of the car, and of course there's higher pressure underneath the car, and that creates lift up on the car. And when the car gets lift, of course it's going to lose some of its traction on the track and then lose its ability to get thrust. So one of the things that they've designed and put on cars to help create more downforce on the car to help it stick to the track is the wing in the back and the spoiler area in the back to capture some of that wind to create some of that downforce to keep the car down onto the track. Also, some of the times you may see, especially at the upper levels of the sports, they have sometimes roof flaps to kind of do the same thing to create some downforce to keep the cars from getting airborne in the cars. So we have our thrust moving the cars forward. We have our drag acting opposite of the car when they're trying to reduce that drag. And then we have the wing and the spoiler in the back creating downforce to get more traction on the track. The next thing to talk about that we'll talk about is going to be as the cars go into turns and the corners. So the next thing to talk about is when a car enters a turn or comes out of a turn, especially going into the turn after going down the straightaway at a high rate of thrust or speed. As it goes around the corner, it's going to have centrifugal force, or the force of going around that corner is going to want to take the car towards the wall, the outside part of the wall. Of course, the tires have grip on the track, and so they start to skid and chatter or bounce, and this is where your downforce is going to play an important part in trying to keep those wheels on the ground. So as you enter the turn, if your front wheels start to slide out and chatter, and you start to lose grip with your front wheels because that centrifugal force is greater than your horizontal force of your tires keeping you on, it's called understeering. of the car, and if it's the rear wheels or tires that start to slide out in a corner, then they call that oversteering. And one of the things that you can make, especially at the higher levels of sport where they are able to do this, that you have to try to balance out is trying to maintain. Obviously, you don't want to slide to the outside of the wall or to another car that's up on the other side of the track. So that's how they design the springs and the shocks in the cars, is to absorb that chatter and that bouncing to try to keep your tires on the track, to keep that grip so you don't slide. And again at the upper levels of the sport, during a race, they're actually able to go in and adjust the wedge, so to speak, of those springs, or adjust the springs to help control that downforce and keep the car on the track and keep it from sliding. Okay guys, one last thing I want to talk about here as far as the science of the cars going around the track here is drafting with the cars. Before we talked about the thrust forward of the cars and the air resistance or the drag on the cars going backwards. So for the car behind the cars in the front, they don't have to push that air out of the way. So they lose a little bit of that air resistance and that drag on the car, so their speeds can increase and go faster. For the car in the front, when that air comes over the top of the car and comes to the back of the car, it's moving faster than it was at the front of the car. And that faster moving air creates lower pressure behind the car and the higher pressure in the front. So that actually would slow the car down. But when you have the car behind the front car, you don't have that lower pressure air and behind the car in the front, that then therefore goes to the car behind it as the air moves over the top of that car. So that allows the car in the front to move a little bit faster. So when the cars are bunched up really close together like that, the closer they can get, the faster that they can move due to that less drag on each of the cars as they're going. And that's usually typically the drafting that you see that happens, especially the faster they go, the more effect it has, the higher speed tracks. And then there's also something called side drafting, kind of the same idea a little bit, with that moving air creating that less pressure. But that's it.